Hello Kitty, me gusta mi titties, me gusta mi booty. Hoy me tomo un selfie con filtro Hello Kitty.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Dangerous Games podcast. This is a sports crime podcast. I am Courtney. I am with Reckless Cards, and this is my gorgeous, stunning, beautiful, better than your host,
Oh my goodness.
co-host, the original Mrs. Breaker, Mrs. Squirts, Sarah.
Hello.
Hello. Today is a Sarah-centric episode. She will be doing her case. I, as always, have no idea what it's going to be, but I look forward to hearing her tell me about it. So with no further ado, I give you Sarah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, girl. So this week we are going to be touching base on Rico Harris. Rico Harris was a basketball player about back in the early 1990s. So it's not too old, unlike last week's, but it's got a lot of cool little nicks about it, I guess. So let's get right into it. Rico was raised in LA with his mother and father, LA, and later added 3 more siblings to the family.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a big family for me. Well, that's like your size.
I know, I have a big family.
But I love it. I love it. I couldn't do it, but I love it. His father was an all-star himself, playing for Idaho State University. But even though he was an all-star, he had a dark side to him where he would become violent and physical towards Rico. He pinpointed Rico because Rico was the oldest. Even though his father was ugly at times, it didn't stop Rico from wanting his affection and approval in his adulthood, which is very common. I mean, sadly, I did that the same way with my father growing up, so I know how that feels.
Yeah, look at Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson, you know, you could point to like all sorts of celebrities.
I feel like it's human nature. I mean, so Margaret, Rico's mother, eventually left Rico's father and hoped that Rico would pick up basketball again because he had given it up in high school and in his younger ages, because she said, quote unquote, he was born to play basketball. Even though Rico was built to be the next Odom, which I don't know if you really want to be compared to Odom now, like looking at it, but
well,
Rico, what?
I said, well, you know, at the time.
Lamar Odom?
Oh.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Rico would soon give up basketball at the age of 15 and would start to look into acting. His acting life would be short-lived because a year later, Rico changed his mind about basketball and returned to the court. With basketball now a part of his life again, Rico was praised for his NBA potential throughout most of his teens and his 20s. Being back on the court, Rico was changing the Temple City High School win record and eliminating their dry streak. They were bad, very, very bad. And so now he was bringing the W's.
Let's go.
Heck yeah.
Did he act in anything? Was he actually? No, he just wanted.
No, that's just a goal that I think he had set for himself, but never really went through with it.
Okay.
Rico was 6'8" at 15.
No wonder they were comparing him to Odom.
Right, and roughly 215 pounds.
So tall and skinny.
Yeah. Well, I mean, very tall, girl. And it took other teams to double and sometimes triple team him in order to stop him, which makes sense.
I wonder what his wingspan was, being that tall.
Probably an eagle. I don't know if that's an option, but that's what I figured.
I have to Google it.
We'll have to. He was untouchable in the key, and his coaches praised him for it, but the court may have been the only place where he shined. Academically, Rico struggled to maintain his grades and was extremely shy. Rico's senior year at Temple, he met his girlfriend, who was academically smart, and helped encourage him to do better. In return, he was able to get a GPA of 3.0, which is actually pretty good. I mean,
that's like B average, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe a few A's in there, maybe. I don't know.
Like an A and then B's, or maybe like an A and B's and 1 C.
That's not bad at all. We can just make a lot of combinations for this. And
Rico, my kids only have to maintain a 1.2 GPA to play sports.
What?
Isn't that insane?
That is insane.
I'm like, not in our house.
What is a 1.25?
I think it's like a D.
All C's? All D's?
Yeah. Like a D average.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah.
Weird. So Rico became more desirable to Division One teams. Obviously, he's turned his academics around.
Mm-hmm.
He's not only athletic, but now he's got some
Got the
smarts.
brains and the brawn.
Mm-hmm. The problem was Rico was unable to score well on the SAT, which is needed to get into most colleges. And his goal/dream of playing for the University of Rhode Island, where a coach originally recruited him while he worked at UCLA, was gone at that time. It may maybe come back later. Rico started the process of becoming eligible for a scholarship that he had lost. He had multiple scholarships, but when he failed the SAT, that was it.
Oh, he failed it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't pretty. It was really, really low. And he didn't hit any marks for any Division One school.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Rico decided to go to ASU. This kid has been everywhere. Let me just tell you this right now. He decided to go to ASU under Proposition 48, which limited him to taking classes during his freshman year in order to regain his eligibility in 1995. My brother was 3. That's crazy. Rico started to struggle academically and socially at ASU because he was without his friends and family. I mean, he kind of needed people that he
Didn't have a
knew.
support system, yeah.
Yeah, especially coming from where he came from.
Right.
You could say that the struggle started him down a dark path in life. In March of 1996, he was arrested on a charge of unlawful imprisonment along with 2 other teammates from ASU for forcing 2 women to perform sexual acts against their will. The charges would later be dropped. So that's kind of a huge accusation, in the sports world. Today, tomorrow, whenever.
Well, we just, this week, when we're recording this, we've been talking about Mason Greenwood. The charges, the rape charges against him have been dropped. And then Joe Mixon.
Joe's crazy.
Well, he punched that lady in like 2014 and like broke her face.
I know.
Got a second chance, and now, so you see this a lot where the charges get dropped because they're maybe not. I don't want to say that. Allegedly,
they could have been, and maybe it was paid off and hush hush. Who knows?
We don't know.
We don't know. We won't know. We're not the victim, so we don't know. But maybe it did happen. But because of that, ASU told Rico he could not play for another year. So not only was he not playing for the freshman year because he's trying to get his eligibility, he wouldn't be able to play his sophomore year even if he made the eligibility. So he was going to have to wait till his junior year to play for ASU. So that's kind of a big blow to somebody who's trying to find their way.
Agreed. But if you're going to like hold people hostage, that might be something that you should think about.
Well,
allegedly.
We don't know. There's no criminal report that you can read, which, on my nerdy law side, I would have loved that, but I didn't have it.
You're just like me. I'm like researching like ancient newspapers, and you're looking up
cases. I'm looking up cases. I'm like,
you're like, can I get court transcripts, please? Yes, and thank you.
Thank you. I get this. Instead of waiting for ASU to approve him to play, Rico returned back to LA and enrolled in LA City College. It's a 2-year junior college, in hopes of improving his grades and still making it out to Rhode Island to play for Coach Herrick.
Well, it seems like he's trying.
Well, sorta. Just wait.
Okay.
Rico's coach. Just wait.
I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't know how this case goes.
Don't. I mean, yes, but don't. Don't get your hopes up. Rico's coach at LACC said Rico was Lamar Odom before Lamar Odom. NBA scouts began attending games hoping to convince Rico to forego college and enter the draft when he was old enough to do so. But, like Rico, he had his other plans in regards to his basketball career. A few weeks after winning the LACC's first ever state title, Rico signed his letter of intent to attend Rhode Island, University of Rhode Island.
Very set on this Rhode Island thing.
Very. But, once again, Rico didn't attend a class needed in order to pass to be eligible to transfer to a 4-year college.
Oh, Rico, what are you doing, my man?
I know,
Get
dude.
it together.
And it's sad. I mean, yeah. And his girlfriend's still with him. So
Where's his guidance counselor? Where is his guidance counselor being like, you need this class? What are you doing?
Windows come out in like 2001.
I
don't know.
had a guidance counselor in 99 when I was in high school.
I think I did too. Well, not in high school. I wasn't in high school, but
I know, I'm
anyway.
older than you. I get it.
So when this occurred, it was hard for those around him to accept that this was not a self-sabotage situation.
Oh.
Since he had issues at ASU, being away from family, how are you going to go from LA to Rhode Island?
That's a lot farther.
Yes. So Rico decided to travel to Chicago to meet with another school. So he finally traveled. That was actually like one of the biggest things, was like he finally actually did it. With another school, but at the same time stated to the school that he was in no rush on moving on. So it seemed like Rico was trying to figure out where he belonged and who wanted him, really. Rico would ultimately return back to LACC for a second season, which Rico later said was a horrible mistake. Bless you.
Sorry, excuse
No,
me.
you're fine. He said that it was a horrible mistake. That's when Rico started to heavily drink and would wake up and drink again to help with his hangovers. It never interfered with his ability to play, but it did cost him his girlfriend from senior year in high school.
That really supportive, wonderful girlfriend.
Academic, the family was awesome, and he just
He's like a high functioning alcoholic at this point.
Which is crazy because anyways, we're gonna move on because I'm not a highly functional alcoholic. This started a downward spiral for Rico, where he started to ignore recruiters who were calling him, texting him, and believed that they only wanted him based on his athletic ability and not his personal development.
Well, duh. They're recruiters for basketball. Of course they want you for your athletic ability.
Well, and I think that's kind of like he was kind of told that you're either this or that. And when he finally felt like he was good, like with himself, it was like, oh, you just want me because I'm good at basketball. And it's kind of I feel like an ego thing in some sense when I was reading it, because it was just kind of like, but that's what you're supposed to do. You're good at basketball. Like,
that's your job.
But
I'd be like, I did hair for 20 years, but I really want you to like me and want me to do your hair because how cute.
I mean, sure, you can do my hair. It's fine.
Because I'm cute. It doesn't matter that I can do hair. I'm cute.
Right.
I need you to acknowledge that, or I don't want to do your hair.
But how are people going to know your personal growth when these are recruiters who haven't been with you since birth? So how do they know that, like, it's kind of like a dumb reason.
It's like a cop-out. It is. I think the whole self-sabotaging thing, this sort of seems like it's true.
Yeah, and I feel like he's just taking his own self on an own walk. But he decided to declare himself for the 1998 NBA draft.
Okay.
This man couldn't commit to anything else. Let's see if he can commit to this.
Oh, I think that's foreshadowing.
Once he was actively on the list for the draft, Rico started having second thoughts about it. Rico was asked to come to a pre-draft camp in Chicago, but just like other opportunities in Rico's life, he bailed on this one, eventually deciding to withdraw from the draft altogether because he did not feel like he was personally ready for this type of commitment. But yet you were just mad that recruiters didn't want you for your personal growth. But okay, to each their own. Rico would then reach out to another coach who had recruited him when he was in high school. This coach prior was, I believe he was the coach for Oregon, University of Oregon, but was now at Cal State Northridge. Okay. So Rico's
closer.
Well, yeah, it is, but how do you go from going to the draft to wanting to go to Rhode Island? I mean, he's just jumping everywhere.
Well, it feels like he's following these coaches that it's almost like he's got daddy issues and he's looking for someone to fill in that like father role.
Definitely daddy issues. It's sad though. I mean, and that's, he wanted that acceptance from his father too. So he's trying to find that acceptance in another male figure. Totally. 110%. I agree. So Rico saw something different with this coach, though, at Northridge, and believed that his reputation for strict discipline was what Rico really needed in order to develop as a person and as a player.
Oof. This is daddy issues.
Even though the coach believed in Rico, others did not at the school. Sadly, they were right, and Rico continued drinking heavily and could no longer fully contain his underlying emotional difficulties. Later, we find out, though, that he had tried to reconcile with his father in the off season before going back to the school. So there's speculation that that might have been kind of a trigger to the downfall of him. So the coach of Northridge would later suspend him because he was arguing with teammates and coaches. Rico ended his season at Northridge after being suspended twice for 2 other violations of team rules and would never play college ball again. After exhausting his eligibility for other colleges, Rico searched for the next part of his life and landed on multiple international teams. Rico was later picked up by rapper Master P, who also played basketball in Rico, and they began traveling together. They made a traveling team. Things started to look up for Rico as he drank less and started focusing on himself and his ability to play.
Look at that Master P over here, just
doing work.
I love Master P so.
Rico realized that his hopes of playing for the NBA had also been exhausted and opted instead to join the Harlem Globetrotters. Rico felt he had finally found his niche in I can't think right now.
This is why we record this late at night.
I know. Well, I'm okay though. Like, I feel good. Needed him for his skills. Sadly, that wouldn't last long for Rico due to a traumatic car accident that would leave him with intense headaches and trouble keeping his balance. At the age of 24, Rico's basketball career was completely over.
Oh my goodness.
Soon after his career came to an end, Rico started drinking again and began using heroin, meth, and crack.
Oh.
So not only did we just go down the deep hole, we just went down. Rico was
life is falling apart now.
Well, he has nothing. Absolutely nothing.
This Rico is so sad.
Was living with his mom at the time, too. It's kind of a slap in the face, if you want to look at it that way. And his other siblings, who also all had a type of substance disorder, like usage. Like, they all were doing something. But their mother hoped that Rico would snap out of it. A friend of Rico stated that he would sniff Ajax just to feel the burn.
Oh my God.
This was the start of multiple relapses, over 100 arrests, and a life of begging for his next fix. It wasn't until 2007, shortly after turning 30, so he's not that old, that Rico decided to change his life after an overdose of prescription pills. He finally went into a program to get help, and he completed it.
Oh, well, that's good. I feel like this is an emotional roller coaster. I'm like,
it is.
I'm doing so good, and then it's bad, and then it's good, and then it's really, really bad, and now it's like, now I feel like it's good, and I feel like you're gonna just like drag this like right out from underneath me again.
Possibly. Once out of the program, Rico moved in with another graduate and got a job as a security officer. Rico's life was starting to look promising, and then he met Jennifer Song, who was visiting from Seattle and was an insurance broker. They quickly became an item, and in 2012, they started spending long weekends in the other city, because he's still down in the LA area.
Okay.
By September 2014, there was talks about getting married and moving to Seattle to be together. Rico finally made that decision that he wanted to do that, and he was going to move there permanently. Having converted his California license for a Washington-issued one, Rico had arranged a job interview for a position as a property appraiser, a job that Rico dreamed about.
Aww.
It was a job that was based on who he was and not his athleticism. Before everything was said and done, Rico made one more trip down to California to talk to his mother and brother. Song believed his intent was to talk with them and reach some closure for the difficult events of his childhood. A friend of Rico's remembered talking to him on the phone on his drive down to California and remembers Rico's telling him he couldn't wait to marry Song and have a family with her. On October 9th, 2014, Rico finally met with his brother and had the talk he wanted with his mother. There's speculation that the conversation didn't go as planned, and Rico decided to leave that night before midnight and with just a few of his belongings that he had still had left at his mom's house. The interesting thing is, his job interview was the next day in Seattle. That's a long ways to be going, and just making that commute, and knowing that you're going to be there on time on your job that you really want. Like, it was just kind of that kind of threw a red flag. It's like, wait, what? So leaving his hometown, this would be about October 10th, like really early in the morning. Rico drove north on I-5, having stopped in Lodi, which was 40 miles south of Sacramento, to get gas. At 10:45 a.m. on October 10th, he called Song from north of Sacramento and left a message saying that he was going up into the mountains to rest. This to me hits me a little bit different when we get to the end, so just remember this. Since he didn't sleep much on his trip, at 11:15 he turned the phone off, and no one has heard from Rico or positively ID'd him since then. That was 8 years ago. Song called Rico's mother after Rico failed to arrive in Seattle as planned. After talking to her, Song decided to wait to report Rico missing, as he has a history of just disappearing and then showing up again. But on October 14th, both realized that there was something terribly wrong, and they reported him as a missing person. That afternoon, the local sheriffs patrolling along a stretch of California State Route 16 along Cache Creek, north of Rumsey, saw a black Nissan that had been parked in a county park for the second day in a row. The deputy looked inside and saw CDs, credit cards, and various papers just scattered everywhere. The car would later be identified as, in fact, Rico's car. The county had local and out-of-state search and rescue groups looking everywhere within the park, but after 3 days, the searchers had found nothing. This baffled everyone because how does a 6'9" man, 300 pounds, just vanish? Once Rico's description started circulating throughout the area, tips started rolling in. One tip stated they saw a man matching his description walking the highway at 5:30 a.m. on the 11th. And another tip said they believed that they saw a man matching the description sitting on the guardrail overlooking the creek on the same day. Rico's car was towed away and searched. It was later found that the car had ran out of gas and the battery was dead. Rico's wallet was in the car, but his ID and one of his credit cards, as well as his phone, was missing. Also found in the car was an empty bottle of alcohol and a half bottle still remaining. Nothing of this made sense, as Rico was a recovering addict and was happy with his life. On October 18th, investigators were able to find Rico's backpack, close to the guardrail where he made his last phone call and where the passerby saw him. Inside the backpack, they found Rico's phone and a charger. Upon opening the phone, they found selfies from the exact spot on the guardrail, pictures of the creek, pictures of the surrounding mountains, and videos of Rico singing and throwing things about within his car. Nobody understands why that happened. There was no presence of danger. He was just doing it. The thing is, though, those photos and videos were time-stamped, because all pictures are nowadays,
Right.
for October 10th at night, showing that he was last seen, or last there, indeed alive, at the time. But that was the end of the search for Rico. His disappearance is still chalked up as a mystery and is unsolved. There are people that, the sheriff that worked the case He came back and said that it's possible that he went and laid out in the woods somewhere, fell asleep, went for a walk, fell asleep, and when upon coming back to his car, it had been towed because they were looking through it. And maybe he came back and his car wasn't there, and so he tried walking to a nearby city. You're talking hundreds of miles up in the mountains. You're not talking about, a little mountain 2 minutes from town.
Right.
And so it's nowhere. It's a very common route, but there's another guy that had said that he called in and said that he had seen a guy matching his exact outfit that he had worn leaving his mom's house that day, and they saw a size 16 shoe, which is how big his foot was, walking towards the creek. And the fact that he said that he was going in the mountains to rest, my gut thing was he did commit suicide. And I think that he wasn't taken. People speculate that maybe he got involved with drugs, or he wasn't involved with drugs, but like that side of drugs.
Like something bad happened to him because of drugs.
And somebody took him. But I think even though he was so happy with his life, maybe whatever happened with his mom, and they've interviewed his mom, and she acts like a grieving mother, so it's like, it's really hard to kind of get this idea of like, was there an argument between you two? Was something said, something triggered, because he went back to his homage and he never made it back to Seattle, to the person that he loved.
Imagine though, imagine if your kid and you had an argument and you just think it's like a regular argument, and then that was your last. He's like, clearly he was troubled. All of those kids in that family seemed like they were like traumatized by their father.
Yes.
And they all had substance abuse problems, again, probably as a result of the trauma that they had endured as children. And he was just trying so hard to be something.
Yep.
And I don't know, maybe he was just exhausted. I don't want to say that that's what happened to him, because you don't know, but maybe he fell down and hurt himself in the mountains, and just regardless, nobody disappears for 8 years and just disappears like that. So the likelihood that he, is still alive is probably like nothing.
I think you're so right. I feel like, when I was reading up on him, like I said, I'd actually seen a show that did this, a documentary that actually did this case, and it just kind of threw a lot of red flags for me, because it was like, I just think that maybe, and this is just me thinking outside the box. It's not saying that this is what happened, that maybe he was at his point in his life that he was the happiest, and that was the best time for him. And so
he was worried it would come crashing down,
Yeah, and
you're just like, I'm going to end it before something bad can happen.
And I'm not saying that's what happened, and I would never wish that upon somebody, but at the same time, being a survivor myself, like, you feel for him, because it's like, like, hey, I hear you. Like, I hear the pain. I see the pain. I get why you would you go to your happy place. And he said that, there were so many pictures of him smiling and just having a good time. Granted, he drank like a fifth and a half. God knows when he started that. But, it's very sad. And I wish there was closure for Song, because that's the thing, is like, that poor woman loved this man unconditionally. And, still to this day, last time I looked, I don't remember. I don't think she ever remarried. I mean, it's not because she's waiting for him to come home. It's just like,
sometimes you meet the person that's your person, and no one else
makes
gone.
And I think that's the selfishness of it that really hurts me, because there's so many people that are impacted by this. His best friend is impacted, his mom. I mean, it's just
his siblings, like, think about his brother and his mom. If they really did have like an argument, families have arguments all the time.
Yeah.
If they really had an argument and then that was the last time they saw him, imagine how traumatic that would be. So I think this week's episode, I'm going to link like suicide prevention, domestic violence prevention, substance abuse prevention in the show notes. So if you or someone you know, care about, or love is like struggling with stuff like this, please, please, please seek out the help you need. And we will make sure to have that all linked in there, because everybody is valuable. And just because it's bad right now doesn't mean it will always be bad. So.
And I think that, I feel like I can speak for both Courtney and I when I say, if you need somebody, we are here.
Yeah, our DMs are always open. So
we are definitely, an open book, and our doors are open always. We will listen.
Yeah.
And help. For sure.
Well, this was a really sad one, Sarah.
Sorry. But I feel like it's just,
it's important to tell these stories. Like, I feel like he had the whole world at his fingertips, and he just was such a traumatized kid. He was a traumatized kid, and like, that's what happened. So, be kind to each other and be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
And until next time,
yes,
we are here if you need us, and make sure you check the show notes if you need help. So thank you
guys.
Bye.
LACC, me gusta